Hi there, and welcome back to my channel. I wanted to come on here and talk to you about something very personal before we get into me making tutorials and doing reviews on products. And the reason why I want to talk about this personal part of my life is because honestly, it affects my beauty routine. It affects what products I use and how I get ready every single day. So it's kind of weird to be like, I have this dark secret, but it affects my beauty routine. But you'll understand when we get there. So I found it to be important for me to come on here and, kind of divulge this part of me before I get too far into this new channel of trying to come up with makeup routines and whatnot. Because you're going to find out and you're going to wonder what the hell is happening with my face. So I'll just come out and say it. No sense in beating around the bush with it anymore, but I have a condition called trichotillomania. And what that is, it's a mental health disorder. It's classified in the DSM as an OCD disorder where I obsessively and compulsively pull out my own hair. You're probably like, what the fuck? Don't blame you. So it's an incredibly common disorder. About 1 in 4 people experience some sort of picking, whether it's skin picking, hair pulling, scab picking counts as kind of like one of those, I don't want to say like-minded, but oh, gross, honey. My dog just coughed and phlegmed and it was nasty. But what was I saying? It's kind of like in that same category, like skin pickers, pimple poppers, hair pullers. I mean, everyone kind of does that to some degree, but when you do it to the point where you're causing noticeable damage to your body, that's considered at the level of maybe classifying as, meeting criteria for the disorder. So I've had this disorder since I was in the 5th grade. And I actually remember the day that it started. I was sitting in science class and our teacher was teaching us about atoms and just how teeny tiny they are and how everything in the universe is made up of atoms. And to kind of give us some understanding of just how small atoms are, she had us pull out a hair from her head and look at it. And she was telling us, and don't quote me on the numbers because I don't actually remember. I'm just kind of like throwing out a number as an example, but she said, look at the width of the hair, and if you were to line up atoms side by side, it would take like 300,000 or 400,000 or whatever back to back to make up the width of one hair. And I feel so weird saying this because I'm such a dork, but I was so fascinated by that. I was like, oh my God, that thing is so small. And it's just so dumb. But I remember being like, oh my gosh, when I got home, I would pull out a hair and it's a different thickness than the last hair. Maybe it's super thin. And I would think to myself, oh, well, maybe it's only like 200,000 atoms wide, or this one that's super thick. Maybe that's like 600,000 wide. And it was stupid. It was stupid. And for some reason, I was just sitting on the couch and I was just pulling out hairs and I was looking at them and I was fascinated by it. And then the night ended, and you would think that that's where that ended. Unfortunately, it didn't. I continued to pull out my hair, but it was no longer connected to, what I learned in science class. It transformed into this habit that I didn't even realize I was doing. So I'd be sitting down watching TV or reading a book, doing homework, playing with toys, and all of a sudden I would feel my hand on my head and notice that I'm pulling out hair. So I'm doing this without any thought or, no prompting, no hi honey. There was no, like I said, there was no thought. Nothing motivated me to do it. It just was happening. And it eventually migrated not only to the hairs on top of my head, but my eyelashes as well. And the eyelashes were particularly embarrassing because you can cover up, if, oh, honey, you can cover up on your head, you know, if you develop a bald spot, which I did develop a small bald spot up there. But, you know, eyelashes, you lose those puppies and people notice. Like, people can see that you don't have eyelashes. It's not like you can just throw your eyelashes in a ponytail and cover it up. But, you know, I suffered from that point in 5th grade through middle school, through most of high school, and then kind of like towards the tail end of my, here, bring it here. Sorry, hold on. This is a noisy dog toy, and that's gonna go away until mommy is done recording. Sorry, baby. But that carried on up until, you know, most of my senior year. And then it was like towards the end of my senior year, I don't know if I was just like seeing freedom. I was in a different place with friendships, and I was in a different place with like feeling more confident with myself, that it just kind of stopped. But for some reason, about the time that I graduated, for 10 years, I never pulled. Didn't pull once. Didn't pull a hair from my head. Didn't pull out an eyelash. Didn't pull out anything. And I thought that I was cured. I thought I was done. Like, it was a phase of my life that I just didn't understand, that I did these things to myself that make no sense. And I was just over it. Like, I didn't understand why it suddenly stopped as fast as it started. And not only that, you know, for years and years and years, I was fighting these natural urges that, quite frankly, were as strong urges as the will to survive. I know that sounds really dramatic, but like, these urges are just like, I have to eat. Like, when you're starving, I have to eat. I have to do this. It's got to happen. And it's a weird comparison to make, but it makes sense in my head. And anybody out there with trichotillomania, you're going to see this and you're going to be like, yes, girl. And it's just this strange phenomenon that I don't understand. And for years I fought it, and I would like sit on my hands and I would fight these urges to pull. And, you know, I had a lot of successes and I had a lot of failures, but every single day it was a fight. And so it was weird to wake up one day and it was just like gone. You know, I had been fighting and fighting and fighting, and there was no one particular thing that I did that I felt like made me stop, or that I was successful with necessarily. It just stopped. And for 10 years, I was fine. And I didn't pull. And then I was pregnant with my second son. And I noticed, you know, some symptoms of postpartum depression starting to take place before I even had him. Because I had postpartum depression after my first son. And then towards the end of my pregnancy with my second, I noticed some of those symptoms coming back. So it's like pre-postpartum depression, I guess. But I noticed some of these things coming back, and I developed the weird habit to like play with my eyebrows. And it kind of was just one of those things that I would play with them, and sometimes the hair would come out and sometimes the hair wouldn't. And you know, it wasn't like I was necessarily at first trying to pull my eyebrow hairs out. They just would sometimes fall out from playing with them so much. But eventually, I created a bit of a thin patch in this eyebrow, kind of in the middle. And I knew I was in trouble, because that's kind of how it started before. It's like I noticed that there was a bald spot, and I was like, oh, there's something happening here. And after I had my son, the postpartum depression definitely got worse. I then, over time, ended up with no eyebrows. They were completely gone. And on top of that, shortly after having my second son, about a year later, I ended up getting divorced and losing 2 dogs who like within a short period of time, of which I was very close to. You know, they were my best friends, because that's just how pets are. And so I went through an incredibly sad, anxiety-provoking, devastating, and grief-stricken time. And my pulling was 100% and completely out of control. There was nothing that I could do. But the weird thing is like I only ever pulled my eyebrows at this point. Like I never pulled my eyelashes, and I never pulled my hair on top of my head. It was just like my eyebrows fell victim to this disorder, and I don't understand it. But here we are today. That was about 3.5 to 4 years ago that the trichotillomania came back. And I've been struggling with it with my eyebrows ever since. About 8 months ago, I went and got my eyebrows microbladed, but it doesn't necessarily cover up the fact that I don't have eyebrows. Hi, kitty. That's Willow Kitty. Hi, baby. Oh, yes, hello. And a jealous dog coming up the stairs because I talked to the cat. How dare I? But the microblading was helpful because I could go into the pool or splash pad or wrestle with my boys and not necessarily worry about if my eyebrow were to wipe off and then see absolute just like bare skin, which I'm sorry, anybody without eyebrows, you look like a freaking alien. And I can say that because I live my life without eyebrows. I know what I look like. And so getting the microblading was nice because it kind of helped cover up looking so alienish. But I can't just go out and about with just like no makeup on because it still looks like a tattoo. Like I don't see, even after 8 months, I don't see individual hair strokes anymore. It's kind of all blended together. So in order to, I'll just kind of try and show you up close. You can kind of see, if my camera would focus, how with doing my makeup, I have been able to make it look as though I have hair. It's a process and it's a lengthy process. I've gotten very fast at it. But even with the microblading, I still have to do that because, you know, you can tell the difference in definition between like one solid tattoo color versus, you know, having the lighter and the dark strokes that make it look like there is some definition there with individual hairs. So that's kind of why I wanted to get on here and talk to you about trichotillomania and my experience with it because, you know, you're going to see me doing makeup tutorials and you're going to wonder, what the hell am I doing with my eyebrows? Because it is going to be different than any other beauty influencer out there or anybody else who's doing tutorials because I'm not the majority. I'm not the majority. And this will be very helpful for those with trichotillomania to do my brows, but I'm very well aware too that my tutorials, especially brow ones, are not going to be relatable to a lot of people. And that's okay. You know, I've lived with this disorder for a long time and I've been very thankful that, you know, I have been able to develop, you know, a system with doing my eyebrows that I actually get complimented on my eyebrows now. And it's kind of like a weird phenomenon to me. I was actually in Ulta last week and one of the associates that were working there, she came up to me and she's like, "Oh my God, who does your brows?" And I said, "Me." Okay, I didn't. But I was just kind of like in the back of my head, like, this chick is asking me about my eyebrows and she has no clue that I don't have any. And so I actually took it upon myself to tell her, I was like, you know, actually even though I've done my eyebrows, there are no eyebrows there. And so I told her to take a closer look. I was like, check it out. Like if you look really closely, this is all makeup. And she was just like completely blown away. And so I told her about Trick and I told her about, you know, what I do. And she was shocked. And I cannot imagine a better compliment. You know, in the world of being able to do makeup, to be able to hide something that's embarrassing and dark and like blatantly noticeable without makeup, be able to like completely cover that. I mean, I don't mean to toot my own horn, but I'm proud of myself to be able to have developed this. And it took years and years and years and years to like nail this down. I'm 32 years old and I started this in 5th grade. So, you know, I would hope that by this time I would be decent at filling in my own brows. But that's kind of why I want to be on here. Like, I remember what it was like first starting out with makeup and trying to hide my imperfections and hide this disorder and how embarrassing it is and failing miserably. That if I can do a tutorial on here and even help just one person cover up their trick on their eyebrows, then I'll be pretty happy. So I'm not saying I'm an expert in anything. I'm not an expert in makeup. I am only an expert at my own life, and even then I'm failing in a lot of areas miserably. But I know what I've done so far, and you know, if there's any way that I can be helpful, if the tutorials help, great. If I can be emotionally supportive to you, great. Comment down below. Tell me about your own experience with Trick if you have it. You know, we can be here for each other because I'm still struggling with it too. It's still something that is very much a part of my every single day, and I understand what you're going through. So there we have it. I now have my Trichotillomania story out into the internet, which before I had it out on the internet, I did a Facebook Live just with my friends about my disorder, but I didn't feel like it was like out there in the world. Sorry, my phone keeps going on. I didn't feel like it was truly out there in the world because it was like on Facebook with my friends. YouTube is like definitely anyone can watch it. So I feel a little naked. But anyway, subscribe, like this video. Please connect with me if you have trichotillomania. I would love to talk to you about your experience and help be supportive to you. And I will see you in the future. My next video, hopefully, a tutorial on how I do my eyebrows. So stick around and I will talk to you later. Bye.